So after last night's Monday night game between the Browns and Steelers, Browns fall in this one 26-22. And of course, the other big headline was Nick Chubb with the gruesome knee injury. He will be out for the rest of the season with multiple torn ligaments in the knee. I want to focus the attention on the quarterback, Deshaun Watson. Of course, you see on the screen now. Not going to cover too much about him getting added with some of the Pittsburgh players. Won't be disciplined at all. Nothing will happen out of that. But I want to focus on his performance, and not just the start of the season. I want to kind of go back to last season when he came off the suspension, played 6 games for the Browns, and of course, once again, counting this game. But before we do that, let's talk about the first game. Go for game log, let's talk about last night's game between the Steelers. So Deshaun Watson went 22 of 40, a 55% completion, 235, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, was sacked an astonishing 6 times. Now, the offensive line did not play well, but it's crazy. It's crazy to see that stat line for any quarterback. 6+, that's insane. QBR was 70.3, and then if you go, and also too, he had 2 fumbles as well, on top of that. Now, we will go back to week 1 against the Cincinnati Bengals, even though they blew Cincinnati out 20-43. Once again, the same issues. His QBR rating was less in game 1 at 67.3, went 16 of 29, 55.2, so on par with what he had last night. 154, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, had 1 fumble as well. And also on top of that, too, 3 sacks. It is very concerning. Now, it's only 2 weeks in. And for me, I've always, I haven't posted a video too much about Deshaun Watson, but for me, a lot of people are kind of bash him too early. Kind of going off of last year when he came back from suspension, he was off a year and a half, and he did look like he had rust under him. Definitely didn't look as poised as he was back in Houston for the last few seasons. Really going back to the last time he really played well was in 2020. I figured this is the year that's going to make or break him. I really do believe, before the season started, I do believe that he was going to get back into the groove and he will get back to close to the Deshaun Watson that we think of. So once again, it's only 2 games in, but I think there should be a level of concern. Even if you are the biggest Deshaun Watson fan, I don't think anyone can say that there's zero concern for Deshaun Watson and how he's playing, because this is pathetic, playing-wise. I'm sorry, it is. These stats, just looking off of the 2 games, are screaming mediocre. And I know also, too, all the other top quarterbacks aren't playing as well either. So this isn't a weird phenomenon of Deshaun Watson only playing bad and all the top guys are. Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, and so forth. They've all had bad games under them, game or two. So it's not out of the ordinary. But if you look at the stats, if we go back to summary. So this is an 8 total game. We're going to break down, going back to last year, his 6 games played after the 11-game suspension, and counting these 2 as well. In 2022, for 6 games, he had a 79.1 QBR. He had just over 1,100 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, sacked 20 times, and his completion percentage was 58.2. Look to now, this year in 2 games, he has a 69.1 QBR, 10 lower than was last year. He has a 55.1 completion percentage, 3% down last year. 389 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, sacked 9 times. Now, once again, the bulk of that was obviously last night with 6. The other one he only had 3. But if you add that together, if we combine just those 8 games together for Deshaun Watson's career in Cleveland, it averages out to a 74.1 QBR, a 56.6% completion percentage, just under 1,500 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and sacked 29 times. That is, once again, that is mediocre. He is struggling mightily, and it doesn't help now with Nick Chubb being out for the rest of the season. They don't have the running game to rely on, and this was a kind of a big part of the offense for the Browns that people thought Deshaun Watson was going to bounce back. He has good receivers, and more importantly, he has the running game. And now with Nick Chubb being out, it's going to be very difficult. I mean, of course, I've saw reports saying that they're looking into, of course, Kareem Hunt, who played there last year, and also Cam Akers, who the Rams are trying to trade off. Or maybe they stay in house with the players that they have for the Browns. You have Ford, who had a strong game last night. Pierre Strong, who they traded for before the season started from the Patriots. But it's a lot of pressure. The stage is bigger, much bigger now with Nick Chubb no longer being there for the rest of the year. And the stats are abysmal for 8 games in Cleveland when you compare it back to 2020 when he had over 70% completion percentage and so forth. I mean, the stats were so much better. I mean, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I get it's comparing a full season to 8 games. But even the eye test, we know that Deshaun Watson in Cleveland is not the same one in Houston. Now, luckily for this year, if we break down contract-wise too, they don't get hit pretty hard just yet. I mean, overall, if you look at the money-wise, the production isn't horrible for the cap he's getting this year. His cap hit is just over $19 million, but it goes into full effect really in 2024 when it really starts averaging out to just under $64 million a year. Will it be that cap hit when it comes? Who knows? They might try and move money around, and it might be lower than that. But for right now, it's just set at just under $64 million. Deshaun Watson, this is no doubt, this is a make or break year for him. He needs to prove that he is worth all the money, and more importantly, too, not just the contract looking at just for this cap hit, but just the big contract in general of being fully guaranteed $230 million, an unprecedented amount of money that was thrown to Watson when no other team was willing to pay for that before then. No one even thought of the idea of that happening, and Cleveland comes down. For me, we all believe, at least from my opinion, the Browns were desperate. This is coming off of Baker Mayfield, who had a bad year. Granted, he had a injured shoulder, but he played bad as well. And they kind of had to make a decision of what they were going to do moving forward. And to me, this was just a desperate move, a desperate pitch to land Deshaun Watson and to finally get their franchise guy. And so far through 8 games, it's not been like that. I'm sorry, he has not played like he was in Houston when at the time you could probably argue he was a top 5 quarterback in the league. His last 3 years, 18, 19, 20. Now moving forward for the Browns, now again they had two. The argument against it was he faced tough opponents. He faced division rivals. He faced the Bengals and the Steelers in Week 1, Week 2. If you look at the next few games for the schedule, they faced Week 3. They faced the Tennessee Titans, which should be, compared to the other two, much easier, even though they do have a tough defense as well. I think this is definitely the easiest game out of the 3. Next game in Week 4 is Baltimore Ravens, another divisional game. They have an early bye in Week 5, and they go to San Fran in Week 6, Colts Week 7, Seahawks Week 8. Overall, it's a pretty difficult schedule. Once again, if you look at it, I mean, obviously the easiest one is the Colts, because they're definitely in a rebuild, and with Anthony Richardson, we don't even know if Anthony Richardson is going to make it that far. Already in 2 games in, he's been banged up both games, so we don't know the status of how the Colts are going to be at that point, but no doubt that should be the easiest game on the schedule. But everything else is tough. I mean, there's definitely a ton of pressure. If you go into Week 4 in Baltimore and lose that, you are 0-3 in the division, which mightily sets you back into not only just getting first place in the division, obviously, but in the playoffs. The AFC is stacked, regardless of just how the slow start is for all teams, especially the AFC. It puts you back heavily to be 0-3. I mean, if they go, let's say 1-3 for the first 4 games, we give the Browns a win in Tennessee. If they go 1-3, that is horrible, especially with the 3 losses being all in division. And not even only that, too, once again, going after the bye week, which is definitely a big disadvantage having a bye week this early. It's insane that they have it such early in the season for any team, regardless. You're coming off of the bye week to face San Fran, which is a dominant team right now, top 2 team. You can interchange, San Fran and Dallas at number 1, but they are both stacked teams, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And this is something that Deshaun Watson is struggling with. You see that in Pittsburgh, a great defense, and for the Steelers last night, he struggled. He's going to struggle in the San Fran game if he keeps it up. Seahawks have a good defense. Is he going to struggle there? Tennessee too, even though they're a borderline playoff team in my opinion. I don't think anything special. I mean, they are a good team. I'm not going to say they're horrible, but they have a tough defense as well. And not only too, once again, Baltimore has an elite defense, or at least at the very worst, a great defense. It's going to be a huge task to see what Deshaun Watson does. And once again, it's a huge disadvantage going into the rest of the season without Nick Chubb. And we don't even know what the status of Nick Chubb is going to be even after the season, if it's how serious it is. I know in 2015, when he had that same injury, he thought his career was going to be over. And now him, of course, being older and a few years later, having that same injury on the knee again, we don't know how much more of a future ramification that's going to be. Even if he comes back, is he going to be the same Nick Chubb again? So this is no doubt on ever, a big test for Deshaun Watson this season. Without Nick Chubb, can he carry the team like he did in Houston those few years? Because he has the weapons. I mean, we can't argue that he doesn't have a good receiving core around him. I'm not going to say it's elite or top 3 or top 5 in the NFL, but it's good enough. I mean, you have Mari Cooper, who's played well. You have Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I think at times is an underrated receiver. If you look as well, you have Marquise Goodwin, not too much more of a gadget player and stuff like that. Elijah Moore, you got from the Jets in the offseason. David Njoku, I think in my opinion, a good tight end. And after that, I mean, it's pretty much. I mean, you got a couple decent receivers, but those are the main ones of Cooper, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Njoku. I think that's more enough for Deshaun Watson to prove himself. Now, of course, too, the offensive line has to step up much better, and part of it, the sacks are part of it too on Watson, and part of it on as well the offensive line. I can't blame the interception last night on Watson. It was a good pass. It just went out of the hands of the receiver. But I'm sure for some of the sacks, it was his fault, and the fumbles are his fault too. He needs to clean it up, similar to what we talked about in week 1, throughout the NFL with Josh Allen and stuff like that with turnovers. He needs to clean it up, especially more than ever now. He has the pieces. He has the defense. I don't think there's too much of an excuse now. The only one that people are going to probably use is the Nick Chubb injury. But I don't think even then they'll bring in a quality back, no doubt. Whether they stay, I don't know if they would stay in house for running back, even though Ford played well. I don't know if that's the option for long term for the rest of the season. I think most likely if I had to pick, they would bring back Kareem Hunt because he knows the system. He was there just last year. I think that's the perfect fit. He knows the scheme. He knows the team. To me, that's the number one option. So if they go out and get Kareem Hunt, there's no excuse because Kareem Hunt is a good running back as well. Even when he was backing up Nick Chubb, he played phenomenal, I think, in my opinion, for his role. So if they get Kareem Hunt or whoever, there's no excuse for Deshaun Watson this year. Once again, it's only 2 games. We'll see. But it's interesting, next 4 or 5 games, we're going to really see what Deshaun Watson's made out of. And if he keeps continuing it, it's going to be very difficult for the Browns to justify paying Watson this money, especially with the money that kicks in next year once again. As of right now, just under $64 million, which is insane for the production he has. But I'm going to kind of wrap it up here. Once again, kind of, a small rant on the whole Deshaun Watson side of it. I know obviously the big thing that overshadows it, unfortunately, is Nick Chubb. Hopefully he's okay. We know the news now. He's out for the rest of the year. Hopefully he can make a speedy recovery, can come back next year and be the same player he is. But I want to make a discussion on Deshaun Watson that many other people are talking about too, of questioning if he can come back or not. Let me know your thoughts down below on Watson. Do you think that he can bounce back for the rest of the season, or you think this is going to keep continuing? That being said, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in the next one.